This is the Astrology Show podcast with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. This is your astrology and tarot for the week starting February 24. Follow the Astrology Show on Substack to get this podcast every week, plus a daily horoscope emailed to you. Do you have Pisces factors? Well, on February 27, we have a new moon in Pisces, and Pisces rules your mediumship, tarot, psychics, priests, rabbis, therapists, hypnotists, and all who attend to your soul or your spirit or your psychology. If you are a bit Piscean or a lot Piscean, there will be a new beginning on the 26th, 27th, or 28th, and it's a really important one. Your tarot this week is Aries, the Ace of Cups, Taurus, the Two of Swords, Gemini, the Ace of Swords, Cancer, the King of Cups, Leo, the Ten of Pentacles, Virgo, the Moon, Libra, the Ten of Wands, Scorpio, the Six of Cups, Sagittarius, the Empress, Capricorn, the Three of Wands, Aquarius, the Two of Pentacles, and Pisces, the Queen of Wands. Aries. Keep your work, unpaid work, or academic options open this week, as there will be a lot of questions and apparently conclusions, but actually they're not totally the end. A situation which repeats itself, going round in circles, is typical with this South Node in Virgo cycle. So with work or unpaid work or study, you find other people are almost reading the same script and doing the same things day in, day out in a kind of a U-turn. This gives you time to think and review and reshape your point of view and your approach. Even though you can't change others who are on a bit of a circuit, on this South Node cycle, you can alter your perspective and find a better way of experiencing what is on repeat. Virgo in your chart doesn't only rule unpaid work, work or study, it also rules your lifestyle and also your well-being, whether it's mental health or physical health. And it's very much about the tiny details, what makes up you feeling well or not. So what's happening this week is a kind of rehearsal and a reversal, because you have been going around in circles with this since January. Finding out what matters to you most is part of the reward of this cycle. So instead of being distracted by trivia, because you've just been once again through the same situation, like a stuck record, you get to do a bit of soul searching and figure out, does this matter to me or does this not matter to me? And you can actually use who or what is on repeat to buy you time to do something a little bit differently about it, something that you actually gain from. So, for example, if your staff or your boss comes out with the same thing, well, you've been here before, and so you know how to actually use this, because sure enough, it's going to come round again. And it's the same maybe with a doctor or with health insurance or a dentist. Having been here before since January, you know exactly what's coming next. And that helps you develop a different response to it, one that you feel happier with. Taurus. Ceres, the North Node, Saturn and Neptune are in your zone of friends and groups, making waves this week. If an old friend re-enters your life, he or she will connect you to a circle of people where a deal must be cut. If you make a new friend this week, this man or woman will also open up a compromise, either online or through a whole chain of invitations or introductions, which involve a fair bit of negotiation. Pisces in your chart rules friends and groups. You will end a phase here in the final week of May. Maybe you already know what that is. What happens this week tells you that in just a few weeks, there will be a final chapter with your band, club, team, society, social media website, or just one friend. You're at the ending and beginning again stage. So one ending is coming in May, and years of confusion with some of these people will also come to a halt. There have been zero boundaries for years with social media, your social life, particular friends who have all kinds of line crossing going on with you, or with one particular circle or group of people where there are simply no barriers a lot of the time. This week lets you know that it cannot and will not go on forever, either because he, she, or they are changing and will have fully changed by the final week of May, or actually, Taurus, because this friend or group could be on the way out. Gemini. Freedom comes to you when you are alone this week, and liberty arrives when you decide on God or definitely not God. Not God can mean the tarot or hypnosis or counseling, and God can mean just what it says. This way lies independence for you. Life will ask you to prioritize an extremely sensitive personal matter. It may be counseling, as I've mentioned, or Buddhism. It may be dreams. It may be mediumship. This cycle that you're in, Uranus in Taurus in the 12th house, is really important this week because it lines up with your birth chart as well. And if you have anything in Pisces, Gemini, you can double that message. Basically, this week will liberate you from the tarot, for example, or liberate you through the tarot. It will set you free from religion, or it will give you freedom thanks to religion. It goes on. This cycle with Uranus in Taurus is always about liberation from, getting rid of something or leaving it behind, or liberation through, discovering in a lightning bolt that this way lies independence. So it's very personal, as I've mentioned, and that's why so often this week will be about things like dreams or the tarot or a therapist or even self-help. Uranus is sudden. It moves like lightning. So a few minutes of your life this week will see everything changing in a kind of a lightning bolt or a flash. What you get with this transit is the world turning upside down, the last thing that you expected coming to pass. And yet through this, you find that you have space. Cancer. Well, Jupiter in Gemini helps with a secret, sensitive, personal matter now. It helps through it and around it. This is the kind of transit when people quit alcohol or they find God, they become pro-psychics. This may be a private plan that you cannot tell anyone else about, or it may be a rather delicate matter only for your own soul. This is one of those positive weeks when both your personal chart, in other words, your birth chart, but also your solar chart are saying much the same thing. What you're going through this week will expand and increase what is private, locked up, or just for you by yourself. It fixes issues for you and it opens the doors to expansion. If you do have Pisces factors in your birth chart, you can double that message. Basically, Cancer, you have until June to get the biggest and the best from dream coaches, hypnotists, mediums, monks, and so on, self-help or medication. This week is about life on the inside of your head. It is about your soul or your spirit. And what you're being given is the biggest and best chance in 12 years to really set goals and achieve them by June. Nobody else may even know what you're up to, as this cycle is very private and usually about you by yourself. Leo, well, this Mars retrograde cycle is working backwards. So ever since you entered this cycle late last year, you have been stop-start with your image, your profile, appearance, name, or reputation. Something began, then it ground to a halt and it disappeared. And yet it is about reverse and rehearsal for you, Leo. So you will find that by the time you get to April, everything is back on again. This may be, for example, a cosmetic surgeon backtracking with you, or your name may have been part of it, even your glasses. Maybe it's been about publicity. What happened last year when Mars started in Leo in November came to a big stop in January just a few weeks ago. But again, in a few weeks from now, you are back on again, and this time you will complete the task or see other people finally reach the finishing line with you. Mars in Leo defines how you are seen, how the world talks about you or pictures you or boxes you. We all have labels stuck on us and we get categorized. But for the time that Mars retrograde is in the first house, it's a loop or a circuit. So this may help you understand 2025 so far. When it comes to you, nothing is resolved yet. And there may be a few more weeks of reversal and rehearsal until you get to the finishing line. It may be how you physically look or appear, as I've mentioned, or just your title or name. But understanding the weird process of time will help you this week. But in April, May, and June, you will see a conclusion. Virgo, we have major Pisces transits now in your zone of partnership. It's usually marriage, divorce, separation, or de facto partnership. It can sometimes be a work partnership or a platonic duet or double act. And of course, the seventh house also shows up as anyone against you. If you think of it as a seesaw with somebody else on the other end of the seesaw, or a set of scales with he or she on the other side, you get the picture. And they can be with you very much in a romantic relationship, or they can sometimes be against you. What we have this week is the beginning of the end. This is the end of a life chapter, which is coming in the final week of May. And so for some of you, it may in fact be a divorce, or it may be the end of being single or living alone. It can be the end of a work partnership. Whenever we get two planets like Saturn and Neptune leaving a sign like Pisces opposite yours, and they're both gone from the end of May, you are shown the exit strategy. So this week, you begin to see how this might work out. The end of a chapter, as I've said. You have had years of no boundaries with this person, or maybe one person after another who also had no boundaries. So, for example, a chain of boyfriends who somehow wandered all over the line, or a wife who has given you a marriage which is all over the place all the time, everywhere. Well, that chapter is being written all the way to an ending in May. Neptune goes, Saturn goes, and that's big. And this week is the pointer. Libra. With Uranus in Taurus in your chart making waves one more time, you can give attention to what you earn, own, or owe, and make sure that you put in energy. The relationship is less about the numbers and the money than feeling free. You will often be liberated on a week like this. So set free from someone or something that you can see has a price tag on it, but beyond the numbers, you're all about the space. This week, it may rapidly become clear that if you and this woman, man, or group want to make progress, you're going to have to do it together. And if that's not possible, there may even be a revolution. This revolution would be about freedom and independence. You have Uranus in Taurus moving through the 8th house of your solar chart. But when we go to your birth chart, Libra, we find that you might have Taurus and or Scorpio factors, which is adding to this unpredictable situation. You have seen this since 2018 when the cycle began, and this week you get another turn of the wheel, either with the money, the house, the apartment, the business, or the possessions. It takes great insight to appreciate that the ties that bind are being cut. Uranus transits work suddenly like lightning. What you are being asked to do this week is re-evaluate the dollars, the pounds, the euros, or the Bitcoin, or any other currency, and actually measure it up against the things that are so precious to you or to others. And liberty or liberation has to be part of that. Scorpio. Jupiter in Gemini in your solar 8th house is about making or saving a lot of money through valuables, a house, apartment, charity, business, shares, and the rest. You have until June to take full advantage of this. And Scorpio, you've already had one outstanding moment last year when your luck was in and things just worked. You may have made or saved a small fortune last year. Well, you are now still on the same transit until June, so more of the same is possible. Do use this week to follow up an opportunity that you did nothing about last year, or even when you thought about it in January and still didn't act on it. There may even have been 2 opportunities to save or make money. If you go back to last November and ask yourself who or what you set up and they're lost sight of, there's a big clue there. Try and do this by June as Jupiter moves signs after June and you find that your luck changes into a different area of your life. Jupiter was always, to the Romans, the biggest and the best, Optimus Maximus, they called him. And 2,000 years of astrological research amongst every culture on the Silk Road tells us the same thing. This is the lucky planet. In Asia, it was known as the year star. In India, they called Jupiter Guru or Brihaspati. And here in the West, we just associate Jupiter with bigger, best, and bigger still. And so that's what's on your side this week. And it's really important that if you did let something slide, you go back to it. Sagittarius. Pluto in Aquarius in your chart puts the focus on travel, short haul and short distance travel, often to a neighbouring place. Very new questions here about who or what is in control are in your life. Do you have the controls with getting from A to B? Learning to drive is an obvious example that would definitely trigger some of you, but so is taking an electric or hybrid car or walking instead of taking the bus. And maybe this is very much about an airline for you. At the moment, Pluto in your chart is telling you that you are going to have to put more time and energy into something that you used to take for granted before, which is getting around. Pluto in Aquarius in the third house is also about the media and the internet, your way with words, ideas, and images. And you have been offered quite new power here. Twice last year, and right now, you seem to be backing someone or something that has changed before your very eyes, making a difference to how you see the internet or the media. Even fundamental communication like hearing and reading and speaking can sometimes be the story. The key question this week is about having self-control to get control. The rules with Pluto are that willpower makes you powerful, but if you give up your willpower or your self-control, you tend to find that something or someone takes over. So for you, it may actually be about the internet, or it may be about public transport or your car. Understanding that you have to keep yourself on a fairly tight rein this week is half the battle. Capricorn. Brothers and sisters, but also cousins, are in focus on this Pisces cycle. Sometimes siblings in this cycle can represent a real period of deal-making or negotiation for you. The sibling or cousin mission is about a just-out-of-reach goal connected to the final week of May this year, when you can finally sign off. Perhaps May is in your diary even now, about or through a brother, sister, or cousin. The end of Saturn and Neptune in Pisces in your third house is also very important in terms of how you communicate online and offline. You are in an end game cycle with media and the internet, and it has been a very long time for you since you have been able to operate online with rules and regulations and limits. At the moment, the total lack of boundaries has been the norm for so many years that you may not even realize the internet could be quite different, or the media could be quite different. But this stops in weeks. Maybe you already know why. You are finishing up with Neptune in your third house in a way that will stop the confusion or the floating boundaries. Blurred lines online sums up what you've been through and what you're still going through this week. But at last this week, you also realize there will be an end. Aquarius. Whatever your personal situation is in terms of your house, flat, family, or flatmates, you are likely to have a special wish list revolving around freedom, space, and independence. Maybe you want kitchen renovations, which would stop somebody cramping your style or your space. Or maybe you just need the permission of a parent to move out. It's personal to every Aquarian. If you have anything in Cancer in your birth chart, then June or July may already be in your planning for the biggest and best outcomes in many years with home, the household, family, or real estate. Even if you don't, or you don't know, this week is still all very much about the ongoing revolution with your relatives, your household, the house or apartment, your town, or your country. Because Uranus and Taurus and your fourth house is about who or what feels like home to you. And yet, ever since 2018, when this cycle began, you have also come to know that every single time it's going to be about your own freedom and independence. That explains the far more independent direction that you have taken. You have really moved on, up, out, and away from where you were, and there's no going back. This process has not stopped, and it goes on this week. You're still going to be given Independence Days, plural, until the month of July. It's as much about how you feel bound to a place or to people as anything else. And yet, this planet, which is your ruler, Uranus, is a symbol of the sudden revolutions that set you free. Unpredictable events are always the calling card. And every time the world turns upside down, it is a sure sign that something very new, very different, and quite liberating is set to come in. So that's your forecast for this week. But remember that you do have this transit until July. Pisces. Well, people express their Mars retrograding Cancer cycle in different ways. You may pour yourself into your private life, for example, relationships, and this is where you are currently reversing, but also rehearsing. There are just as many people who live through and for a younger generation, their own or other people's children. Babies, Generation Z, teenagers are their outlet, and maybe that's you. This is also where you are reversing and rehearsing. And Pisces, if you happen to have Leo factors in your birth chart, you can double that message. Mars is always about action, not words. And Mars is also about heat. So reheating issues is normal this week. Mars in the 5th house will teach you about relating at this time, but you get there by reheating and rehearsing and reversing the relating. And this goes on for some weeks yet. So it may be your son, it may be your fiancé. What is happening is taking you to a far better destination. That bigger and better space opens up for you in June. Pisces, this is the famous Jupiter cycle, which is going into Cancer, another water sign like your own, for the first time in 12 years. It's there for 12 months, so by June 2026, you should be able to look back at this week and understand why all the reversing and rehearsing had its part to play. This is always about courtship, the bedroom, babies, children, teenagers, or just a younger generation below your own. And even though things are still a bit circular and a bit stuck, and even though you may feel as if this has been stop-start since the year began, there is a kind of logic later on to what is happening now, which you'll be able to see once you get to June and July and realise that the big solution or the huge opportunity which is waiting for you was actually a function of things that weren't really coming together now. So understanding the astro timing will help you this week. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch up with you at the Astrology Show on Substack next week.